Hey everyone, welcome to another week of Site Reliability Chats. Today, March 30th, 2022. So without further ado, as many of you know, I'm Jason. I'm the Director of Advocacy at Gremlin, where we do all things chaos engineering. But we like to have a show that chats about the week's latest news in terms of technology and reliability. So up first, as we dive into the news, this was an interesting article by VentureBeat that came out about 81% of companies have experienced a certificate-related outage in the past 2 years. This study actually comes from a company that's, if I can control all my things. So the company here is Key Factor. They actually sponsored this because they work in identity management. But this was super interesting, particularly because they were taking it from a security side. But one of the key findings was that it takes teams about 3.3 hours to recover from certificate-related outages. So really just simply reliability. And really interesting about it is how many times have you experienced that, right? We have TLS certificates for things. If you're running really any sort of website that is concerned about security or performance, you're probably using TLS. You're using certificates to identify machines and to ensure secure communications. But also when they expire, they tend to have effects that impact everybody, right? So TLS certificates no longer valid, machines no longer trust that communications, and things go south from there. So this was particularly interesting to me, as we often test this with chaos engineering by updating timestamps within machines, just changing the clock to see what will happen and to simulate that a certificate has expired. So plenty of things that you can do around chaos engineering for that, but much more widespread than I had once thought. The other fun thing about this is, aside from Key Factors that actually sponsored this, they worked with an organization called the Ponemon Institute. The Ponemon Institute is a research and think tank that's devoted to information security and privacy and sort of IT policies. But if you know me, Ponemon sounds like one of my favorite things, which is Pokemon. So today we also have a special guest. As you noticed, Julie's not with me. So my special guest today is somebody who I've known for quite a while in the tech and reliability space, doing SRE and DevOps type work. But the last time we hung out was actually because we share a love of Pokemon Go. So I'd like to welcome to the show Mandi Walls from PagerDuty, Senior Developer Advocate or Incident Response SRE Advocate. I'm not quite sure, but welcome to the show, Mandi.
Hi, Jason.
What is your official title?
Officially, I am a DevOps Advocate at PagerDuty.
DevOps, that's what I was looking for.
Yes, that is it.
Yeah, so the last time we hung out was actually, at least in person, was 2019 Pokemon Go Fest, right?
Yeah, in Chicago, right?
Yeah, in Chicago, back when we could travel and like do things in person, and things like that.
It feels like forever ago. My goodness.
Yeah, there's been a lot of Pokemon Go news recently because their director of product has made a number of changes. But one of the things that he hinted at was apparently Go Fest is going to be again in person this year with some changes.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't been following that too much because like it's in places I probably won't get to go, but yeah.
Yeah. I should have switched to this slide because it was who is our mystery guest.
Yeah, your mystery guest caught me.
So that's the question, right? We actually do have a fun little game I figured that we'd run just so we can test you on a few things.
I'm terrible with these, yeah.
For those who listen to our podcast, the Break Things on Purpose podcast, we have this really cool electronic intro and exit music. That's from loyaltyfreakmusic.com. The wonderful folks that run that actually also made this game. They make these really amazing like low-tech games, and this one's made in PowerPoint. It also comes with accompanying music, which I can maybe play. Let's see if this goes. So we'll just let that go and maybe play this game, and we'll test Mandi's skills to guess the Pokemon.
So much pressure. Okay.
I'm controlling it, so you can't cheat.
All right.
Are you ready?
Oh, I guess. Yes.
All right, here we go.
Okay. I think that one is Cottony. I died. No.
All right.
What?
Music's kind of loud for me, so.
Oh, it's not coming through for me, so, you know.
Oh, that's a bummer. It's like blasting in my ears, and it's so for folks who want this, we'll post the link in the video notes afterward. Definitely play the music and sponsor these folks. It's basically this like crazy, like a little bit chaotic music with somebody yelling occasionally. It's Pikachu.
Oh, because it's always Pikachu? Is that the joke?
Surprisingly, this one's not. So I actually got this one.
Oh, okay.
It's Bulbasaur.
Right. Bulbasaur.
But let's try a few more.
Oh.
These are actually somewhat hard to guess.
It is hard,
given
right?
the graphic skills. Or I shouldn't say graphic skills because like these are fantastic. They're just stylized in a way that makes them hard.
They are, yeah. And given that, like I would guess Fampy on this one.
Oh,
I died again. Wow. Because it looks like maybe it should be Rattata, but
it is.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's funny. It's like one fat arm and one skinny arm.
Like the perspective's all screwed up there.
All right, we'll do one more here.
Oh, geez.
Wow.
What? Well, now I'm gun shy, right? Like I don't even know because I'll say Charizard. There we go. All right.
That is one happy looking Charizard.
That is an extremely happy looking Charizard. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that was fun. And completely random, which is totally okay.
Yes.
But we can dive into some additional news from this week as we keep things going. So for those who have been following the show, we've been highlighting GitHub because GitHub, despite having a bunch of recent outages, they've been fantastic about the transparency with incidents that they have. They post a monthly update. We're still waiting on the monthly update for this month, and that should be coming out in the next few days or the next week or so. But they've had a bunch of updates, and so they decided to preemptively post an update. And so they've got this update on recent service disruptions, which catalogs a bunch of their recent updates that are all, because they're all sort of related. And as they dive into the details, it really looked like it was just a lot of MySQL work that they kind of knew that there were issues with scaling, and they've detailed some of their plans, but I think a lot of it was related to that. Mandi, I know that you've read into this and you've obviously got a lot of experience as well, like as doing sysadmin work and ops work, managing databases like MySQL. Curious what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah, like, and I confess I haven't read their entire backstory. Like I know kind of in the back of my mind that they've been working on this for a while, but I haven't been reading all of the saga from the very beginning. But like some of it that did sort of strike me as being interesting to sort of look at from the outside were like the timing of some of these outages. Like they were like this. Let's pull this back to Pokemon Go. So like during big events on Pokemon, right? So I live on the East Coast, right? Which means that when my time to play a special event comes up, EMEA is still kind of online, but depending on the duration of the event, they might be towards the sunset of that event. But then as the rest of North America comes online, like things go crazy. So looking at their performance and their peak time, like it looks like things are starting to fall apart as the West Coast of the US comes online. And this feels like a boiling frog thing. Like you're kind of seeing this dread sort of sweep across your activities. And then as the time zone daylight hits on the West Coast, then things start to fall apart. And I am sort of curious as to like what on the product side they're seeing as far as like, is this just organic growth of the product? Was there something else that they've been adding, or is it new adoption of features and stuff like that that have caused this additional load to sort of creep up on them on some of these things? Because some of the other stuff is kind of like par for the course with relational databases. They're going to throw some indexes at it, and they've talked about their partitioning and some of the other things that they're doing that are just kind of like, that's how databases live. But like, I was super curious as to like, what does that look like? Because like, you can like, if you've ever managed a wide application like that, like watching traffic sort of light up across different time zones is super interesting. And if you know that when the last one lights up, things are going to fall apart, like that's a big sense of dread.
Yeah, I feel like the interesting thing here is, Pokemon Go, since we've been talking about that, like New Zealand folks, thank you for being, the canary deployment for the rest of us.
Everyone,
like,
yes.
So much garbage has gone your way. Like things just don't work, and they always get fixed by the time it rolls around to the States.
Yes.
And I feel like that is one of those issues, right? Of it's really hard when you're dealing with scaling issues. Oftentimes you can canary deploy new changes. You can canary deploy, anything that you really want to test. But when you have these, short seasonality in terms of time zone, like that makes things really hard to actually canary deploy to, right? Like you inevitably have that guinea pig sort of, or that canary audience that has that bad issue, and sometimes it's just not as well contained. That said, we'll post the link to their original blog post, which was from September of last year, on all that they're doing around MySQL. It's fascinating, and it's all stuff that really is best practices. It's just scale is such a hard thing. So, they talk about doing partitioning, schema domains, obviously like query optimization. So they've introduced like query linters into their process so that like, as people work on the code, they're constantly like evaluating anything that gets committed against performance and best practices, indexes and stuff. For those who might be going to the upcoming KubeCon in Europe or involved in the CNCF stuff, Vitess is one of the projects there, and they're using that, which is a scaling layer for running MySQL. So yeah, there's all sorts of cool stuff. Again, we'll post that link in the show notes so that everyone can go read up on that. Really fascinating stuff, though.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that gets tackled going forward. So.
Yeah. So the other thing that we've chatted a bunch about on the show is Log4j, which ended up morphing into Log4Shell because of how people have been abusing that and everything. The new stack actually linked out to this report from Qualys about the whole Log4j issue. Qualys runs security tooling, and so they've done a bunch of surveys just about what's the state of this, right? Because we always hear about security issues that come up, and then we know that people are dealing with them and they're responding to it. The Log4j issue, particularly, they noticed that now we're several months after the fact here, more than several months, and 30% of instances remain vulnerable. So they're finding that 30% of folks have not bothered to update Log4j in those systems. They found that on average, it took 17 days to remediate. So, Mandi, we know each other back from Chef, and the whole idea of Chef and infrastructure as code was like, you could update things easily. This kind of still blows my mind that it's taking, 2.5 weeks for people to update code.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like, Yes. You're pushing risk around, right? You're accepting risk in some ways because you're afraid of risk in others, I guess, right? So for folks who are dependent upon broken versions of Log4j, like what's stopping you from putting those back into your build pipeline and firing things up? Like it's an individual question for every team and every organization, but at the same time, like I think the conversation folks are maybe not really having is where is the risk greatest? And they're just saying, well, we're not sure how this new version is going to work in our software, or we've reprioritized new features instead of bug fixes for these security patches, and they aren't moving forward with the kind of immediacy that folks with a more security mindset would probably prefer that they do. And I'm still surprised at this after all the years we've had of some of these catastrophic breaches that we're still having this discussion, especially this 30% number. Like, this is insane.
Yeah, that's nuts. And I think one of the other stats that I found interesting that it sort of explains why some of that 30% is that 50% of them were in apps that were marked as end of support, or basically like end of life. Like, here's a legacy thing, we're going to keep it running, but not do anything with it. And, I think there's an understanding of like, oh, it's legacy, like we'll just keep it around, and if it breaks, it breaks. But when it becomes like not just a reliability risk, but a security risk, that's also huge.
Yeah, because you're not counting breaks. You're counting breaks as like, it doesn't function anymore. Not like it's now a bastion for hackers to put ransomware in your network, right? Like that risk model has completely changed. So.
Yeah, which is surprising to me because I feel like it's something that we've just accepted, right? Before the show, we were chatting about like how many ATMs and critical systems are running Windows XP behind them. And,
well, they ran OS2 Warp for years, right? Like that had a much longer shelf life than I think any of us expected it to have.
Yeah.
So Windows wasn't an upgrade. But yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Also, now it makes me wonder, like, I remember when XP came out. That was like the 90s, right?
When was that one? Or was that early 2000s? That might have been, I'm not sure. I want to say 2002, but I don't know.
Oh, was not the 90s. Google says just October 25th, 2001.
Oh, there you go. I was close.
Still kind of crazy, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're on to a bit of our last news here. This one not IT related, but extremely hilarious because we love animals and cute things. Obviously, we play Pokemon Go, so cute little things are what me and Mandi are all about, and just catching them. The problem is the ones that you don't catch. So in our final bit of news that we thought was hilarious, well, not hilarious for the about 6,000 folks in Salt Lake City who lost power for about a day because apparently a squirrel. So the news here was that, the power utility in Salt Lake City noted that their power went out. They did some searching and troubleshooting to try to figure out what the problem was. And it turns out that it was a squirrel. They didn't detail exactly how the squirrel took out power, and I suspect that's because they don't want other squirrels to know about it and to do the same thing. So best to keep that.
I love that they called it small animal interference. Like that is just, which I live in New Jersey, and like down the road from me when I first moved into this house, there were some squirrels nesting in a transformer box. So like every now and then they would go the wrong direction, and we'd end up with a power outage in some of the neighborhood until they like took down the old transformer that the squirrels had completely destroyed and put a new one up and blocked them out of it. But yeah, like they're persistent little suckers to get into stuff.
You were also telling me a story about iguanas, right?
Yeah. So shout out to Val Detweiler. If folks know her, she's been living in Key West for a number of years. And she told us a story right after they moved down there that their power was out for a while because of a similar small animal interference, but it happened to be an iguana getting into a substation or something, which was, super unusual, but also kind of amazing at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, it brings us around to, I guess, the original origin of bugs, right? And debugging your code was was a bug actually got into some hardware and caused a short circuit and fried some stuff, and things just stopped working.
Your wetware gets in the way, but yeah.
So I guess maybe I should bring this up with the Gremlin product folks, but we probably ought to add a squirrel attack to the platform and unleash some squirrels.
Yes, just random power outage somewhere and blame it on small animal interference.
Small animal interference, chaos engineering.
Yes.
Well, with that, we've kind of covered the news that we wanted to cover, but there is one last bit of news, and I'll let Mandi share this bit.
Yes, it is time for PagerDuty Summit. We are running a hybrid event this year. It will be in person in 3 locations, Bay Area, London, Sydney in June, and we'll also be running a bunch of video on demand. So our CFP is open. We would love to hear from you. I'm co-chairing the DevOps track. So if you've got DevOps stories, put those in for me, please. And yeah, we want to hear like what you're doing with PagerDuty, what you're doing with modern operations, what kind of observability stuff you've got going on, if you're working on SLOs, whatever it is. Stick that in there. We'd love to hear from you. So
fantastic. So
and that's open until next Friday.
Okay. So not much time. You've got about 10 days left. So definitely hit that link, submit what you're doing. I'm sure as a viewer of this show, you're concerned with incidents and reliability. So you probably have your own stories to share. So definitely drop those into a CFP for PagerDuty Summit. And I think I will probably be there. I know Gremlin typically sponsors. So if you are going to PagerDuty Summit, keep your eye open for registration, and I hope to see you there.
Awesome.
With that said, I got to do the typical YouTube thing. This is one of our shorter shows. Missing Julie, she's away learning Kubernetes stuff. So we're looking forward to having Julie back next week. But for this week, thanks to Mandi for joining us, and hit the like and subscribe. Also, if you want to see more of Mandi on this show, leave a comment, let us know, because I mean, we know you love her, but let her know that you love her as well. So we'll see you next week on the show. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everybody.